Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Justin Thomas and Taylor Ragland. The first round of the high school girls basketball playoffs is in the books, so let's react. Let's talk a bit about what happened within our local programs who are playing either Monday or Tuesday in the bi-district round of the postseason. I guess just going off of just our results in 6A and 5A, we have 11 teams left in the playoffs. No earth-shattering upsets, I'd say, in the first round. Nothing to the magnitude of like a Duncanville getting eliminated in the first round and whatnot. So, let's discuss at the very least for the first half. We can break down the what happened to the first round in 6A. On the back half of the podcast, we will talk 5A. Lots of blowouts in the first round. Not a whole lot of competitive basketball. If you were looking for some competitive hoops, your best bet was to check out one of the games between Louisville ISD and Keller ISD, because sounds like those ones were at least competitive, if nothing else. Justin, the two results there, you have Hebron getting by Keller 34-31. Louisville got tripped up by Timber Creek 42-36. So let's start with the Lady Hawks. Making their return to the playoffs, first time in a while. Yeah. And look at them, already bound for the second round.
Second round, first time since 2008 from my research. Big props to Hebron there. Hate to keep going back to last year, but it is pretty awesome that, this team didn't win a game in district last year, and now here they are in the second round of the playoffs. We were talking about on Monday, Hebron needing to get healthy for this game, and it looks like, I didn't cover this game, but it looks like they were healthy. Sierra Dixon came back, and she scored 7, and then Deja Melton scored a team-high 12 points, and she hit a go-ahead three-pointer in the final minute.
Wow.
Keller gets a basket, and then she hits 2 free throws to push it back to 3, and then like a last-second look for Keller missed, obviously. So 34-31 win for Hebron. They look like they're healthy again, and now they get to play aforementioned South Grand Prairie after upset of Duncanville. That one's going to be 6:30 Thursday at Grapevine.
Yeah, suffice to say, in hindsight, that getting those two guards back made a pretty significant difference given how close this game was.
Absolutely. So.
With Louisville, though, I guess if there was a team that perhaps you might have foreseen getting to the second round with the year that the Lady Farmers had, just what do you kind of make of them getting tripped up by Timber Creek? Yeah,
we talked Monday that I thought this was going to be a defensive game, and it certainly looks like it was, 42-36. Louisville actually had a lead at halftime, 18-16, but then they only scored 5 points in the third quarter. They got outscored 12-5, and they could never get back into it. I was kind of following on Twitter. I think they were down about 5 with maybe 3 or 4 minutes left, but it didn't look like they could really, get within that one possession there. We talked about how they would have to slow down Timber Creek's Meli Kalahi, and she scored 17, so maybe they did an okay job of that, but she was the leading scorer, and it looks like that was kind of the difference for them.
Okay. With the only other
I thought this was a game Louisville was going to win, so I'm kind of surprised that they got eliminated, but it looks like just a close defensive game that just kind of went the other way.
Louisville plays quite a bit of those in the playoffs, it seems.
They do.
Let's see. Let's look at the other game that you had, over in 6A Region 1. Marcus had a tough go against Dan Geyer.
I sounded the upset alarm here, and I was proven quite wrong.
Geyer wasn't having any of that.
Yeah, just looking at the box score, it looks like just one of those games that kind of just kept snowballing. 13-6 after 1, 22-10 at half, then 39-17 after 3. So Geyer just gradually pulled away. Nice game for Evie Getz for Marcus. She scored 20, but nobody else had more than 5. So just not enough offense, and looks like they weren't really in this one for much of it at all. But I also want to say props to Marcus. This was their first time back in the playoffs in 5 years, since 2014. So I know a lot of their seniors have been on varsity for all 4 of those years. So I know they were pretty excited just to get to play in a playoff game after, coming up short their first 3 years.
Whereas you had, a couple games that went right down to the wire there in 6A Region 1. Not the case in Region 2, no. We had, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 games that we had a school in Region 2. The average margin of victory in those 5 games was 26.8 points.
Wow.
Not a lot of barn burners, so to speak. A game that we devoted a bit of attention to on Monday's podcast was the cross-market game between Plano East and Saxe, a matchup of a district champion Saxe versus a 4 seed in Plano East. But history had said that, Plano East is familiar with playing out of the 4 seed, and they've fared all right as far as their last 3 times as a 4 seed. Those 3 games all decided win or lose by 6 points or less. That trend did not hold against the the former the reigning state semifinalist Lady Mustangs, 68-42, and
right on that 26-point.
Yes,
exactly.
Right around it.
Yes, this was So I'd say in hindsight, Devin Hassan was the one who was out covering this game.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't get to mention on Monday's podcast that I thought might have made for kind of a salient thing to watch from Plano East standpoint, they can't get down big early on.
Nope.
I think especially if we've talked ad nauseum about the youth on Plano East team, and I think that especially given how you can be prone to some jitters in the playoffs. I saw some jitters out of Plano. Reigning state champion Plano had a slow start in its game against Lakeview Centennial. I mean, so nobody's immune to it. But just to not fall down too big early on, because then that's when kind of panic can set in.
Yeah.
Because it's especially against a team like Saxe that just look at what they did last year. That team has a playoff gear.
Yeah.
And with all that collective experience back, it really made the difference early on in this one, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it was, 27-11 after the first,
Yes.
I think, and then something like 41-22 at halftime. And, that was, Devin said that Tabby Diggs fouled out with 5 or 6 minutes left, but obviously the game was well in hand at that point. It was a 20-plus point lead on their way to the 26-point victory. Speaking of having a playoff gear, the one thing he did mention as far as Saxe goes, he said there wasn't a whole lot of storylines. Saxe kind of dominated throughout, as you mentioned, got up big and kind of, I don't want to say coasted, but held off Plano East throughout. I think Plano East won one quarter, the third quarter, like 17-15, and obviously winning a quarter by 2 points isn't going to bring you back from 25. So, but Devin did mention that Jayla Brooks, a junior guard for Saxe, more of a distributor, I think, during the regular season, and really just kind of a true point guard, trying to, give assists to her teammates and all that sort of thing. But in the playoffs, he mentioned that they asked her to kind of step up, score a little more, have a little bit more of a role on the ball and scoring the basketball. And I think she had 23, he said, last night. So, maybe she's got a postseason gear of her own, but as you mentioned, Saxe long playoff run a year ago and looked prime for another one.
Plano East had a really tough time closing off driving lanes and keeping Jayla Brooks out of the paint, it seems. And then Saxe's defense kind of set the tone there with just the pressure. They were able to force a lot of turnovers. Plano East just had a tough time getting the ball over half court, it seems. Yeah. Yep. I mean, and that's just the difference between a team that has been there, done that, and a team that has one player that's been. Tabby Diggs has as storied a resume as any 4-year varsity starter that's come through that program. But you've got players on Saxe that this is now, a lot of those players have been on varsity contributing since they were freshmen and sophomores and whatnot. And this is, this is a program that has visions of playing, for the next couple weeks. And they certainly looked the part. They were not at all, thrown off by playing against the 4th place team from what was a pretty solid district over in 9-6A. Yep. Elsewhere, though, form kind of held. You expect that, those, teams like Allen and Plano and Prosper, teams that were state ranked for much of the season, that they wouldn't, meet a ton of resistance in the first round. The game I was at, on Monday, I checked out Plano versus Lakeview Centennial. This was only a 2-possession game through 3 quarters. Plano was only up by 6. Plano, as I mentioned, moments ago, really slow start. I believe they missed their first 9 shots from the field. The shot selection was a little wild, so to speak. They were checking way more threes than I think head coach Rodney Belcher would have liked to see. So once things, kind of settled down and they made a more concerted effort to work the ball inside and impose their will, with your Jordan Merritts, your Zaria Collins, the size advantage and the rebounding that they lord over, just about every team that they've played this season, then things really began to kind of take shape. Ironically enough, Plano is a team that runs a ton of zone. That's kind of been their bread and butter all season. Lakeview Centennial did such a good job spacing them out and, getting them out of rotation, knocking down threes, that Plano actually had to go away from that zone in the second half. And oftentimes when you see that, you're thinking that's almost like a sign of panic,
right.
a sign of weakness, because this is our defense that we've run all season and just it's not working. So we have to go to something that, and there was a little bit of reluctance at first because, Belcher wasn't sure how Plano would handle the speedy guards that Lakeview had. And as it turned out, switching to man wound up being the saving grace for that defense. They despite Lakeview Centennial playing them really close for 3 quarters, Plano outscored them 21-6 in the fourth quarter, and a lot of that was triggered by the man-to-man defense, forcing turnovers, getting them out in transition. Plano dominated on the glass. Even though the shots weren't falling early on, that's the one thing that really kind of kept Plano, gave their offense some life with just second chance opportunities. They had 17 offensive rebounds in this game, including 14 points just on putbacks. You had Zaria Collins, had 19 points. Jordan Merritt had 20 points and 13 rebounds. So, Plano eventually got it together, looked apart, later in the game, but definitely a closer call, at least through 3 quarters than I think Plano might have anticipated. Otherwise, you had Allen just laying waste to Wiley. The final score in this one was 66-16. Allen, I'd say that's probably the most, probably the largest margin of victory in program history as far as a playoff game goes, if I had to guess. It seemed like you're hard pressed to find too many teams that win playoff games by 50 points. This was just Allen doing what it's done for the last few weeks. Allen's been one of a team that has really rounded into form over the second half of district play. This is now their 8th consecutive win. They ran the table over the second half of that District 9 6A schedule. All 11 players scored for Allen in this one, led by 13 from Tyler Jackson, who's a player that's come on real strong down the stretch. She continues to kind of grow as a scorer, as just kind of a nice compliment to Nia Green, who Allen didn't need Nia Green to go off obviously in this one. I do believe that that Allen was in attendance for the Saxe Plano East game, obviously eyeing a potential collision course with Saxe in the 3rd round if both teams are to win their second round matchups. Allen will take on Tyler Lee, and that game's going to be all the way out in Wills Point, Friday 7 o'clock. Plano takes on Rockwall, and that one is going to be at Naaman Forest. Friday 7 o'clock. Okay. Let's see other results. Prosper took care of Rowlett 63-40. Prosper, a team that was in first place for the majority of the district schedule. Like I said, had a bit of they stumbled down the home stretch, but obviously that didn't bother them whatsoever against Rowlett. This was a game kind of like Plano Lakeview Centennial that was a little bit closer than expected early on. Prosper only led this one 30-27 at the half, but they blow the doors off in the second half, outscoring by 20 points. They allowed just 7 points in the third quarter, allowed only 6 in the fourth. Maddie Cleary had a huge night for Prosper, 22 points. Jordan Oliver doing her thing with 17. They did get Scout Huffman back, a key return for Prosper,
for sure.
Especially just to get her interior scoring and rebounding. It doesn't sound like she played too many minutes, only scored 4 points or whatnot, but it was also big on defense. They limited Rowlett's super scoring Ngozi Obaneki to just 5 points. So Prosper, they've got as solid a defensive gear as any team in 9-6A, so I'm not surprised to see that they begin the playoffs with a very emphatic defensive performance. Let's see, other results out of Region 2. You had, Mesquite Horn. Mesquite Horn was able to advance out of the first round for the 4th straight year with a 58-44 victory over Copperas Cove. This game was not anywhere close nearby. Obviously some travel required for that one, but the Lady Jaguars are able to pull it out. They pull ahead big in the second quarter, outscoring Cove 18-5 after trailing by 3 after the first quarter. Nia Boyd, big game as usual for Mesquite Horn. She has 18 points. Jasmine Shaver Neighbors with 12, Jalen Reagans with 10, and now, they'll get to stay a little bit closer to home, but they draw Saxe in the second round, so we shall see if they were able to offer up any further resistance against the Lady Mustangs versus what Plano East did on Tuesday. So that is a look at the happenings in 6A Region 2. Obviously, still plenty to discuss as far as the happenings in 5A, including a dominant performance by Frisco Liberty, holding McKinney North to only 12 points. And when you think Frisco Liberty, you think Randi Thompson. And Randi Thompson was the subject of our student athlete spotlight. Kendrick Johnson was out covering that game, had a chance to talk with Randi after the Lady Redhawks' big win over McKinney North, and we will see what she had to say after a word from the sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
Kid Johnson, Randi Thompson, star guard for the Liberty Lady Hawks. How's it feel to be advanced to the next round?
It's good. I think we kind of been waiting on this. We really prepared for this, and I don't want to say we knew we were going to win, but we came in knowing we were going to win.
What's your mentality going forward? Because it's like, I know last year y'all came really close. Y'all done beat Lone Star this year. It seems like y'all team on a mission. Y'all very hungry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just, I think we just make sure we play hard, make sure we pay attention to practice, and just make sure we play as a team.
Talk about y'all camaraderie. It seems like everybody gets along, and y'all share the ball, and everybody is on the same page, which is what you want this time.
Yeah, well, I think we just came out. We were just like, we should just play the same way we played last Tuesday when we beat Lone Star. And I think we just had a mentality of just like, we got to get back at them, and we just want to be able to like prove ourselves.
How big that win from Lone Star let y'all know how good of a team y'all could be?
We definitely like.
Not that y'all lacking confidence, but that's an affirmation.
Yeah, we definitely were very excited about that. We just kind of knew like at that point we just like. We can beat anybody, especially since like we were up on them so much, and then we allowed them to come back. We just know that once we keep a lead, we can't keep, or once we get a lead, we can keep it.
And what y'all learned from last year going to the playoffs that will help y'all out this year?
I think just got to make sure we play one game at a time instead of just trying to look 5 games ahead.
I feel this to be back. You worked all summer, and now you're here.
Yeah, I think we're just super excited to be back. We just really hope we make a long run throughout the playoffs. Just work hard.
And final question, how good does it feel to be playing with these girls and y'all winning and everybody's coming to see y'all play? This atmosphere was electric. You felt like a playoff game. How does it feel to be on this stage and be able to do y'all thing and be winning?
I mean, I think it's very exciting. I think we do deserve it. Like, we've been playing so hard. We worked so hard. Our practices are super intense all the time, and I think we finally deserve just to be able to be in an atmosphere like this and be able to win in an atmosphere like this.
A big thanks to Randi Thompson of Liberty, taking the time to speak with our own Kendrick Johnson. I'm not Matt. I'm Brian Murphy, the Frisco guy coming in here for the second half of this girls playoff podcast. Sticking with Liberty, I tried to tell Kendrick Johnson on the podcast on Monday that Liberty was going to dismantle McKinney North. I didn't think it'd be that bad. McKinney North only scored 12 points, but Liberty, they've been doing that to teams all year. I know at one point towards the end of district, they had given up somewhere around 22 points per game, something like that. So McKinney North was just the next victim. Randi Thompson in that game led all scorers with 12 points, but Liberty's so well balanced.
Tied the Bulldogs, huh?
Yeah, she scored. That's a good point. Yeah, she scored as many points as the entire McKinney North Bulldogs team, so very deserving of our spotlight interview of the week. Liberty, they advance to take on South Oak Cliff. Should be a good matchup. Hopefully they take care of business, and then we could get them against your alma mater, Centennial, in the third round if they take care of business against Highland Park. Speaking of Centennial, want to quick hit that bracket of the district since they could match up in the third round. Centennial, they demolished Denison 61-37. I was trying to figure out which game would be the most competitive. I knew Liberty and Lone Star were going to win big in their matchups, and I was like, man, what's Centennial going to do against Denison? What's Memorial going to do against Wiley East? And I thought Centennial and Denison could have been the closest game, and that was another blowout. Just shows you how good that district could be. So if Centennial takes care of Highland Park, they would be facing Liberty in the third round. So I understand you guys have a couple 5A squads from the same district in the big dance. We want to talk the Colony, or we want to talk Lake Dallas? The good with the bad.
Start with the bad and then with the good.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get Lake Dallas out of the way. My alma mater is doing a lot better than pretty much all of the teams that I cover on a weekly basis here. But yeah, Lake Dallas, just a young team. Obviously the two juniors in Dorian Norris and Joe Elliott, and then started 3 freshmen against Boswell. And Boswell was just too much, pretty much in all facets. I believe the final score was, 88-49, something to that effect, almost a 40-point win for Boswell. And it was just I think the thing that really got Lake Dallas is that in 8-5A, there's some really good programs and some good basketball. The Colony can play with a little bit of pace, a little bit of pressure, but Boswell was an entirely different level of, in your face, press all the time, intensity. We're going to make you turn the ball over. Lake Dallas had multiple 5-second violations just trying to inbound the ball. I think at least 3 or 4, from what I remember, if I remember right. And then, combine that with the pace. Once they get the ball, they're going to run, up and down and try to take you out of your comfort zone. And that's basically what happened. Lake Dallas on offense never really got going, never really executed what it tries to do. It was 1,000 miles an hour all the time, really out of control, uncomfortable, and I think the youth has something to do with that. But
yeah, I was going to ask you. So Lake Dallas is a young team, right? So that inexperience, many of them, it was their first playoff game. Yeah. So did it show?
Yeah, and I don't think it's jitters necessarily. It's easy to kind of lean on, it was their first playoff game. They were hyped. They were nervous. I don't even think it was much that. I think it was just the amount of pace and pressure that Boswell plays with is something that they never got in 8-5A. It's just something that didn't really exist. I mean, you play a team like Denton in 8-5A, they're trying to beat you 30-28 or what. It's just a different brand of basketball. And even, Norris and Elliott, they've been on varsity and been contributors, but they got blown out by Lone Star last year. Not a lot of deep playoff experience. So this is another year under their belt. They bring back the entire starting 5 from this playoff game. The Norris and Elliott will be seniors. Elliott's little sister Georgia was a freshman. Mackenzie Buss, freshman point guard, and then Allie Buchanan down low, who split time this year with Ari Hughes, a senior. But like I said, they bring back all 5. So that was kind of the theme after the game from head coach Catherine Madison. Is just this was a taste. This will make them hungrier. They see where they need to be to try to win their first. I believe they haven't won a bi-district game since like 2008 or 2009, one of those years. So they've made it back to the playoffs, but this really might be the group she hopes that can take that next step and kind of elevate their game. And now they've gotten a taste of what the playoffs can bring. So that's basically all there was to it. Boswell's just a really good team. They don't relent. Their pressure is really hard to. That was what Madison said. She's like, there's no passing out of it. It just never stops. They're just so good, so quick to the ball, and they make you so uncomfortable that Lake Dallas just didn't have an answer. But a great season. First year head coach in Madison, not first year of the program obviously, but first year as a head coach. So something to build on for them. Hopefully for them. So moving forward, Boswell should be a handful for whoever they get next. But Lake Dallas will start focusing on next year, I guess, at this point.
Lake Dallas's toughest competition in district play, the Colony, the district champions of 8-5A, they had kind of a nail-biter against Colleyville Heritage.
They slipped by Colleyville 57-53. I wasn't necessarily expecting a tight game like this, and this game was even tighter than the score looks, if you can believe that. 57-53, Colony moves on. 3rd year in a row they've made it past the first round. They're going to play state-ranked Crowley 7 o'clock Friday at Byron Nelson. A tough challenge for the Colony.
Are you going to be at that game?
I will be out there. Yeah, I'm going to do Hebron on Thursday and Colony on Friday. Okay. Guys, they were losing this game by 4 points with 45 seconds left and closed on an 8-0 run.
Let me guess, Jewel Spear?
Jewel Spear, yes. So the Colony gets an early 12-2 lead, but they get in some foul trouble. Colleyville switches up their defense. The Lady Cougars had a little tough time adjusting. They're actually down 26-25 at the half. They have a good 3rd quarter. Spear starts to heat up. They have a 15-10 advantage, so they have a little lead going to the 4th. But they find themselves down with 45 seconds left. Spear gets a screen from Chloe Adami, makes the 3, and gets fouled. So 4-point play to tie the game.
Wow.
I think it kind of rattled Colleyville a little bit. Tamia Jones, they put the press on. Tamia Jones gets a steal and a layup, so the Colony's up 2. They immediately get another steal. Kennedy Ryan gets the layup this time. So just like that, down 4 to up 4, and they end up winning by 4. So, big 4-point play. Spear finished with 25. Tamia Jones, 22 points, along with, her strong defense and, getting into the lane and wreaking havoc. So, Kennedy Ryan finished with 8 for the Colony. So, a little surprised at how close this game was, but, they did what they needed to do in the last couple minutes there to get the win when it looked kind of bleak down 4 with about 45 seconds left.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the playoffs. And that backcourt from the Colony with Tamia Jones and Jewel Spear.
It's as good as there is.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think, I cover so many good teams, with Liberty and Lone Star, they're state ranked. But when you look at just those two players in that backcourt, in the area, in the 5A level, it doesn't get much better than those two players right there.
Yeah, so big win, and like we said, they'll play state-ranked Crowley on Friday, so another tough one. If they win, they'll be in the 3rd round for the 3rd year in a row. So
interesting. Well, speaking of Lone Star, I just brought them up. They faced
another one of my teams. I think I'm out of
Lovejoy, by the way.
I'm out of girls basketball teams, I guess. Plano's still alive, but
but on the 5A level, you're out.
I'm going home early on the girls' side, it seems.
Yeah, so I was at that game Tuesday night at McKinney High School, and this one was never close. Lone Star is as good as advertised. I think they have an 11th in the state right now. Their best player, Adriana Quezada, only scored 10 points. She didn't get heating up until late in the second half. They were face guarding her the entire game. But, when you have a pair of sisters in Mia Deck and Kyla Deck, one drops 22. The freshman dropped 22. They combined for 7 3-pointers. Mia Deck, she dropped 16. So, their guards carrying the load. When they're hitting threes, they're tough to beat because their bread and butter is in the paint with Adriana Quezada and Kayla Richardson and a handful of other players. But when those guards are hitting threes, they're tough to stop, and I'm inching closer and closer to maybe a potential Lone Star Liberty regional final. If things, I know they're still 3-4 games away, whatever it is, but if they take care of business, that's what we could get. Lovejoy, they had a really good player, Carson McFadden. She was feisty. She had 21 points. I think she had the majority of those in the second half. She just wouldn't give up. Lovejoy's a feisty team. They have a bunch of juniors coming back from what I remember. Obviously, that was my first time seeing Lovejoy, but I safe to say they'll be back. I saw them play last year in the 1st round against Prosper. Yeah, they just keep drawing the tough 1st round.
I mean, that's what happened, man. It was
don't finish 4th.
It was Lake Dallas. Last season, I guess, they got Lone Star, and I think ended up losing by 60. So, somebody gets in Lone Star's way in the 1st round every year, and it seems like it's going to be a while before somebody can clear that hurdle.
Now, I want to close out this half of the podcast with one last team, Frisco Memorial. First year ever as a program, no seniors on the roster enrolled at the school at all. They have to play Wiley East, the undefeated team from District 10 5A. And they gave them all they could handle.
Pretty good equating.
It was 41-39 with 2 minutes left in that game.
Yeah.
And then they miss a shot, they get flustered, they foul, they get in foul trouble. Their best player is a freshman, Jasmine Lott. She gets in foul trouble. She fouls out in the final 2 minutes. So, that freshman inexperience, they got flustered. Wiley East, they made their free throws, and then they have to keep fouling to try and get back in the game. They miss a 3 that would have tied the game. It goes in and out, and then they have to foul Wiley East again. Next thing you know, it's a double-digit victory for Wiley East. The final score on that one was 51-39. But in all honesty, it was much closer than that. Memorial had a lead in the second half, and like I said, with 2 minutes left, they were down by 2. So Memorial, that is going to be a girls basketball team to watch. Certainly next year and the years to come, their best players are freshmen and sophomores. So I was really, really impressed with Memorial. You can talk a lot about Liberty, talk a lot about Lone Star, you can talk a lot about the Colony, but Memorial, they were easily the most impressive performance in a loss. Give them a lot of credit for that as well. Guys, I think that'll just about wrap it up for this, reaction podcast to 1st round playoff action. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking plenty of boys and plenty of girls, as those both playoffs and girls and boys sides will be heating up for sure. That's Justin Thomas. Taylor Ragland, I almost forgot your name for a second. And I'm Brian Murphy. Now we'll talk to you next week.